Hello, everybody. It's Graham Cofe with another My Music. Now, I've got on today somebody who is the only person to have been on here 3 times. There you are. So, I don't know who the honour falls to, but maybe it's probably me. Thank you so much, Fred, for coming and joining us once again. We're going to watch this quickly. We'll come back. We'll have a chat. Here we go. Analog Trash. If you would like to go and check that out, that would be wonderful. Fred, as I say, you've been on 3 times. You were like there right at the beginning of this, which seems like an absolute eternity now.
I know. I may have been your first or second guest. I don't remember.
I think you were actually my first guest on the show. And believe it or not, we're up to 250 guests.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Fortunately, it's slowly but surely working its way up on the evil Spotify. And last year when the results came in, I was in the top 20% music podcast. So, thank you. So that was great. And I'm just pleased to be carrying on doing this and giving a space to musicians who make proper music. So,
great. I appreciate that. And, you've helped me get comfortable with doing this. So I think that you were the first interview I ever did. So
yeah, you didn't really want to come on first, but that's great.
I still don't like doing it, but I'm much more comfortable now. And
that's
you're the
great
big reason for that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, no, the thing is that, it's this is the world in which we live in now. We all saw last night. I don't know whether you cottoned onto it as well, but Meta released Threads, their alternative to Twitter, and
I saw that. I haven't looked at it.
All of a sudden, the world sort of like got giddy and jumped on, and I think loads of tired people this morning because they've spent last night partying on another platform. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, where does it all stop? This kind of fixation on dopamine and just
I don't know. It seems like it has a kind of bottomless appetite.
You're about to release. When is the release for the new album?
It's scheduled for the 20th this month, so a couple weeks.
So you're about to release. Is this 3 albums in 3 years? Is that right?
Yeah,
it is, isn't it? Yeah, cool, prolific.
Got another one almost ready too. So
yeah, and stuff in between as well. Let's not forget that there was stuff in between. This is a very playful album, and I tell you what I really like about this album is that it's, for me, I think your most cinematographic album as well. I actually think this fits in. There should be a TV show or something that goes with this album.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you sense the kind of visual aspect of this record?
I've heard other people say that about my work in general, especially in lyrical, the lyrical context. But I hope it has that effect. I certainly didn't have one guiding it when I was working on it. And it's always a mystery to me how other people hear it. So that's a, interesting take on it. The cinematic quality. In particular, do you have like a specific?
Yeah, I tell you what it is. I think it's the sort of space between the use of the guitar on this and the keyboard elements.
Right.
And I just think it is the spatial element of the way that it's put down. And I just think for me, I can just kind of imagine, this kind of TV effect where you're kind of watching someone go through the motions in life, and like everything else around them is going really fast, but then it's kind of slowed down and it's really kind of centered on them. That's what it does for me.
That's really interesting, and actually, it's kind of encouraging in a kind of how would I put it? Like, if it has that effect on you, one of the ways to carve out a living in this current state of the music business is to license things. And mostly you're licensing for movies and TV shows. So that's interesting to hear that you have a kind of a cinematic association with it, because that's encouraging,
Because it might happen. Let's make it happen. Yeah.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, I guess that we're actually seeing with the introduction of more of the streaming channels, etc., rather than terrestrial TV, etc. We are seeing a space for more artistic styling in pieces of TV.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We're definitely seeing series where, they don't want a twee piece of music, or they don't want, a little bit of pop. They want something that actually builds drama. And I think audiences are becoming a bit more used to, which is funny, actually, going back to the conversation we had earlier about threads and social media. But in some ways, TV is one space where actually people will actually allow more time to go in front of them.
It's totally true, yeah. And it might be a way to backdoor music in, because it's a captive situation.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, when you stop to think about that, though, isn't it? That actually, in terms of the general populace, in terms of music, everything now has moved towards the 30 seconds or the 20 seconds or even the 10 seconds clip. So a lot of musicians are now writing music with lots of little 20-second hooks.
Right.
Yeah. So that your ear's captured and wow, that's it, I'm in. And yet TV slowly but surely is going the other way as well. I'm not saying that, there's still trailers and stuff that try and,
yes, to grab you with that
it. Yeah. But the TV itself is actually, people are watching. You think even things like Games of Thrones and some of the big epic pieces that have been made. These are long form pieces with long drawn out scenes. I think it's maybe there is an in there. Maybe there's a way of going, right, get my music into something where someone's actually trying to hold someone's attention, and then that actually gives people the space to hear my music rather than because once upon a time we just did that anyway. Once upon a time we would go around to someone's house and sit down and put a record on and listen to it. Crazy.
The old days. Yeah.
Doesn't happen too often these days.
No.
Yeah. How did you? Was there anything different in terms of writing this? I mean, obviously you like to play with your tunings.
Yep. I mean, I'm pretty much writing everything these days in drop tuning, baritone tuning in particular, and some of that dadgad tuning as well. So lower register. It's just where my voice feels
to fit the voice. Really.
Yeah. And this is obviously the first record, or maybe not obviously, but it's the first time I've done everything, had the capacity to do everything myself, like create a band with synths and
wow.
So that was fun.
Yeah. If you like playing with equipment, it's great fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little nervous about trying to do it. I just had this idea that I could do it. And then when I actually had to go through with it, it was much more engaging than I thought it would be. I'm sort of hooked now. I'll probably from here forward always
use more stuff on it. Yeah. Are you actually getting in bits of kit to use on it, or are you? Is most of it like
this record was all done, with virtual instruments, except for the guitar, which I double tracked or triple tracked guitars, but everything else was done virtually, and
it's amazing.
I'm not a keyboard player. I don't play piano, but I can manage and I can write. It's mostly the writing that tool is so fantastic for.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of fun writing the overdubs for this stuff.
For anyone that's a geek out there, what are you using? Are you Logic or are you Pro Tools?
Yeah, Logic Pro 10.
Yeah.
And just a MIDI controller, full size keyboard, and just the plugins that come with Logic. I haven't, outfitted it any more than that, but there's so much there. I mean, as you can hear from the record, I kind of,
yeah. Did that actually prolong the process, Eddie? In terms of, did you have nights where you sat there and, like I used to, where you sat there and went, that sound, no, that sound, that sound?
Absolutely. I did not go into the overdub process knowing what I wanted. So I had to go through, I mean, it was sort of ridiculous. I would just play the track and then go through the sounds. If I was looking for the drums, there's so many virtual drums and like 808 stuff that I would just keep hitting it until I found something that felt right. And then I would write a part. And the same thing went with every other instrument that I included. So
yeah, are you going to go back for your Logic now and kind of journal it so that you like next time maybe save a bit of time?
No, because it's going to be different for every song, So there's no way to really like create a template. So I wouldn't want to do that anyway.
No.
But the record I'm just about finished writing now, I'm about 8 songs in. Is I mentioned, I think last time, that I was going to write a piano record.
Yeah.
And so I've got that almost done. And again, it's all virtual instruments, but it's not guitar based. There's no guitar in this one.
Does that feel quite odd? Being
no, it feels right. You write differently when you play a different instrument, and
yeah,
I like where it's taken me in terms of the mood and the.
But the only reason I say that is because you by your own reckoning, you're not a keyboard player. You're more of a guitarist, stroke bass player.
Yeah, and I'm again, the beauty of the virtual stuff is that I can write the parts, play them good enough, and then just quantize them so that they're in time. I don't care. I'm not a purist. I'm not trying to convince or fake that I'm a great keyboard player. I'm a writer, more than anything. I happen to play guitar decently because I've been playing it since I was 12.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in the songwriting process, and I can become, probably over time, I'll get a little bit more proficient on keyboards, but I still look at it, I play every morning, and I don't have the familiarity I do with guitar. It still seems totally.
Does that mean actually within the short term, before you become a piano virtuoso, which could happen, you never know. Does that mean that, at some point, if you then go and play these records live, these 2 records, you've got to find a keyboard player, especially for the second one, so that you actually can focus on singing delivery?
Well,
and actually, does that, if you did do that, would that then free you up to focus on your delivery vocally or whatever?
I just for the sake of simplicity, I am going to probably play some of these new piano songs live. Like, I'm playing a handful of shows in a few weeks, and then there's more planned. They're not announced yet because they're not settled, but over the next few months. But, I played with backing tracks before and just sang or played guitar with them. But I got comfortable doing that in the last few tours that I did. And so if there were a piano available, but I'm not going to travel with one, if it was.
No, well, this is the other thing. This could be an opportunity to find venues with beautiful pianos.
Yeah. I think I could manage all of these songs. They're not really complex. It's just, I would have to practice, to really get it. And I could do it because I wrote it. It's just, my process right now is to write the parts, write the song, track it, fix it with the magic of the digital quantizer, and then track the vocals, and then I move on to the next song. So I'm not sitting around rehearsing these things. They're just, once I've written them and I know that the structure is correct, I track, I get the vocals, and then I move on to the next one. So I'm not rehearsing to play them live as I would. Even it happens the same way with guitar songs. In terms of the writing process, I have to go back. Even now I've had to, because I'm prepping for these shows, I don't remember how to play a lot of the old songs that I've written. So I've had to go back into my little digital database and put the headphones on and try to figure out
that's something people don't understand about music and musicians, right? People people assume. And there are people out there, don't get me wrong, there are people out there that have that kind of encyclopedic memory, right? Yes. Who literally, you could get them up on a stage and they'd go and just pick it out and play it, which is great. I think even Kristin talks about that in her book about Vic, that he actually had some of that, and there's a bit in her book about them doing an REM thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And she was like, damn, he played that and he just did it. It's like, and I had to learn this song.
Yes. Yes.
Right. But not everybody has that, and people don't realize that. It's one of those mythologies out there, folks. Right. Musicians often have to spend hours relearning their own songs.
Yep.
And sometimes, whilst you're relearning them, I guess you revisit them and go, I'd like to do that a different way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, mostly with you realize that you've maybe played it could be easier. There's an easier way to play it. And vocally, you might change a melody here and there. You're sort of refining it, years later.
So you've got these jaunty little, happy in a way, keyboard lines on this, kind of offsetting all of the time the guitar, which at times just carries the rhythm, and other times is actually with the tuning, and sometimes you put some slight discordancy in there with the guitar, etc. Create some tension in the song, which is really, really nice, which I think is part of what lends to cinematic feel.
Mm-hmm.
It actually, at times, it reminded me. I always give you an album. I gave you gave you Pierre Ubu when you first came on.
Right.
But there's a bit of Jenny Owen's album, or Batten the Hatches, which was a great album that I got into many years ago. There's a sense of that in there as well, in terms of what you're talking about as well. You really kind of capture sort of everyday life scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you sit to, or how do you go about doing that? Do you sit and people watch quite a bit?
I think that's kind of been a habit for my whole life, is kind of being an observer. That goes way back to childhood. So that's not something I have to try. It's just an orientation, I think, is to be an observer of life and people. For sure.
What's your greatest fascination with that? Where people don't, you see people that you think you don't actually realise what you're doing.
You mean, what's my fascination with people watching? Is that?
No, not what's your fascination with people watching. What I think we all get that, but in terms of when you do people watching, you do sort of observe real life, etc. What's your kind of go-to element in that? Is it seeing people kind of making mistakes, but without realizing they're making mistakes, or learning stuff?
I think only recently, this is Chris and I have been talking about the concept of autism, and I never thought of myself as being on the spectrum, and I wasn't, certainly, that wasn't something that was presented to me as a kid, but I've met people who have been diagnosed, and they tell me they know that I am. They're like, we know you are. And so that kind of turned my attitude about why I watch people, which I've always done since I was a kid, is I think trying to understand how
human life works, or how relationships work, and how
especially the social thing. And I'm better at the interpersonal, but the social dynamic has always been kind of a difficult thing for me. Not interpersonally, but groupishness.
Yep.
Always had struggled with that. I've sort of, in some sense, I've written it off like long ago, especially in adolescence. I kind of wrote off ever belonging to a group or a tribe or anything like that.
But where you've had to do that in your life, have people kind of had to tell you kind of like, that's what's happening here? You need to...
I think not so much directly. It's more like, I became very socially avoidant, so not much opportunity for people to tell me what I was doing wrong. It was more like I was self-selecting out of situations because I felt uncomfortable or I disapproved. The autism thing has this confusion around what most people would just call like polite conversation, which is often concealing, actual feelings or actual thoughts, just to, you don't, when someone asks how you're doing, you don't tell them how you're doing, right? But for someone who's spectrumy, it feels like lying.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're around a bunch of people who are lying all the time, and it doesn't really feel right. So you kind of develop, at least I developed a little bit of a, why are people faking so much, and I couldn't get with that. I couldn't do that thing that you're supposed to do just to get along. It felt like they were asking me to go against something so essential to me. So you know, that's just, someone recently made the connection between that and punk rock. And I was a big punk rock kid, and that kind of anger at like the phoniness of society. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Why I was so pissy and, you know,
Yeah.
angry during adolescence, and why I would have been drawn to that. In any case, that's a long way of answering the fact that my interest is in kind of, I'm not a misanthrope. I don't hate people. It's not that. It's more like a confusion and some probable vulnerability around feeling like I just don't know how to belong, you know, and that's been there, and it continues to be there through adult life. There's this, I've written it off at times in a defensive way, but honestly, there's still kind of like, I can't find a way in, you know, I can't, you know. So you get it.
No, I do. I get the idea, and actually, do you know what? It would make an awful lot of sense. I have never been diagnosed, but I know I'm neurodivergent myself because
right,
mm-hmm. And it's interesting the way it comes out. I mean, I was at a meeting, like a network meeting earlier in the week, and we were having a chat with another guy who was kind of sharing the way he felt about things, and everyone was kind of going in with like, what you need to do is there's this book about this, and it's all about you can learn this behavior, and you can, you know, and I just sat back and I was watching, and I was waiting, and then I went, the thing is, you've tried all of that, haven't you? And it just doesn't work. And he was like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, because I totally get this.
Yes,
and I said, so it's no disrespect to everybody else, but if your brain doesn't work that way,
right,
it's
not going to be helpful.
It's not, you know, it was about building habits around food and stuff like that. I said, it's just not going to work. And like,
mm-hmm.
you know, over the last couple of years, I've given up alcohol now. I gave up alcohol like a year ago. And I tried like just cutting back, but my brain can't cope with just cutting back.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not saying I was an addict or anything like that, but
sure.
but I just you know, I can't deal with sort of fluffiness. So for me, it's like, I'm going to cut that, and that's it. And next day I'm done. That's it.
The cold turkey, yeah.
Cold turkey. So yeah, because for me, like black and white works. And actually, if you look at some of your imagery, etc., it is quite this and that.
Yeah,
you know.
Very true. Very true. Yep.
Maybe even with your song structure, it's there.
Yep.
You know, you're not woolly about anything.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Chris and I talk about, I have much more of a sculptural approach to songs, and she's more of a painter.
She's more messy, isn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. I mean, it's great that you've got the difference there. But yeah, you sort of build your layers, and you know where your layers are,
exactly.
and it's all, you know, the building blocks are all there. It's an exciting it's an exciting listen. And I've got to tell you, you hit that note. Is it hungry or horse? One of the two when you sing it.
The low note.
The low note. That low note. Yeah.
Yes.
Were you pleased with that when you came out?
Yes. I think I mentioned that was in our last conversation.
Yeah.
I hit the lowest note I ever hit.
That is amazing.
It takes a lot of breath control to be able to do that.
Do it and hold it. No, so it's not just like there, but it's actually holding it. Yeah.
Yep.
It's your best Tom Waits moment ever. All in that one go. So just so people know, if they're listening, just sort of overview of what this kind of album is looking at.
Oh, you want me to say that?
Yeah.
Well, I think musically, it's obviously a kind of kid with a new toy, which is the virtual instrument world, and kind of all the delights of synthesized sound over, though, the bed of organic guitar, acoustic guitar.
But not overdone. Let's put this, let's get this right. It's not overdone. It's not simply having a wonderful Christmas time.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, which was Paul McCartney really overdoing it with a synth.
Yeah, it always has to work for the song for me. And so that thematically, I don't know that I really veer too much. I have certain obsessions and concerns that are, existential, spiritual, romantic, practical in some sense. There's a little bit of mortality concern, but that's an existential thing as well. The piano record I'm working on now is much more explicitly romantic, and I think that the instrument kind of just lends itself to that kind of writing.
Yeah.
But there's dark stuff on there too. I mean, I can't escape myself.
Is it your most French album ever then? Is there elements of it sounding?
It's very, there's every song, it's very diverse. And I say piano record because but it's not the same sound. It's not just a grand piano, virtual grand piano. There's none of that really. It's all treated pianos overlaid. There's I'm using a lot of strings, some oboe. I do have some virtual drums on there. There's one song that I think is like a very English beat kind of feel. No, most people probably wouldn't hear that, but to me, when I was writing it and singing it, I felt like this is such an English beat. And I was a big fan, in my adolescence of that band. And so it had that kind of to me, it has a very adolescent, bittersweet quality, but
But leave it to the audience to decide.
Of course.
Well, I think people will love this new album. We're not talking about the piano one now because that ain't coming out yet.
That'll be next year.
No. But the next album coming out, which is called
Fear Pageant,
which is an incredible name. We might have to explain to people in the UK what a pageant is, because we don't have pageants. We have.
What is your understanding of that word?
Well, I get pageants. Isn't it like some kind of almost like a celebratory type event?
Yeah, it can have an element of that. It's more like I'm taking it as like a kind of theatricality, high drama, kind of a little bit over the top.
Over the top. I mean, I was going to say the only time we probably see pageant in the UK is documentaries on TV about pageant queens.
Right.
Over in the States, and everyone pushing their kids to do this.
Yeah, there's certainly that element of it, and obviously the fear part is kind of like a pointing at that anxiety of life and death, and just sort of I think all of us under the surface are kind of living in some fear pageant, whether it's expressed or acknowledged. And that means, I mean, the pageant to me is just life itself. It's the whole shebang. It's over the top, really. It's so much happens on a daily basis, but even in shorter time spans, that we have to block out in order to sort of just carry on. But it's kind of overwhelming,
Life is quite overwhelming, isn't it? Especially the speed that everything goes now and whatever, I think that's where, for me, just before we came on, I talked about moving to the sea. We actually lived not that far from the sea. For me, that's why actually the sea is really important. That might sound odd to people, but it is. I mean, I find that like just the expanse of it and just standing and looking at it is just like
agreed. Chris and I both kind of have a need to be around water in one way or another, if we can, on a daily basis. There's something about the movement.
You literally float, don't you?
Yeah. Right.
I think it's the weightlessness of it. It's the kind of like, yeah, if I lie on my back in water looking up at the sky, that to me is like the closest it feels to like probably transcending between this planet and heaven.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the obvious womb-like nature of being,
Yeah, it's good. We need more of that, folks. So the album is out when? We said it once before, but let's do it again.
July 20th. Probably going to release one more single. I don't know if you've heard the whole record, but
yeah, I've heard the whole record. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm still deciding. I'm not sure which one to go with yet, but
the title track.
I know. I like that one too. I kind of like America. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah. Both of those are great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like the start of the title track is just right there, isn't it? That could it almost it tricks you, that song. Actually, he tricks you. You think you're like, this is going to be your indie dance song, and you're going to come back into, and then it's like,
right. It's funny that was the last song that I wrote for the record. It seems to be a habit of mine as I write the title track last. I've done that a few times actually. But yeah, that is a contender. That's actually kind of what I was leaning in that direction for the last single.
Cool. We're looking forward to it coming out. Hope if you already know Fred's material, then you're looking forward to it too. If you're not, you've got a lot of catching up to do, because he's, as I say, quite prolific, and he's got a fair bit for you to go and listen to already. In the meantime, before you do catch up, including a single that's already there, which is My Way, which isn't Frank Sinatra's My Way.
Tis not.
Just so you know, if anything, it's a deconstruction of that particular song. Would you say?
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, do go and check out Fred's music. As ever, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I wish you well with this coming out, and you're playing some gigs as well.
Yeah. So far, just a kind of record release weekend in the Northwest, Seattle, Olympia, and Portland. Just timed right around the release of the record, and then more stuff coming up probably in September and October, a little bit longer, maybe Midwest, West California, and then maybe East Coast. So
cool.
That's all being set up.
Will we see you in England again perhaps next year? Or?
That's in the works, so let's hope so. I would love to.
Cool. Everybody, thanks for listening. Everybody, please say thank you to Fred Abong. And if you've enjoyed this today, please share it on your different platforms. Share it with some friends so other people get to know about Fred's music. Do go and check it out. And if you haven't enjoyed this today, well, A, tough, and B, it's been
There's something wrong with you if you haven't enjoyed this.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't enjoyed this has been an instructional video on how to change the battery on a larder, and you can do with this video whatever you like before it self-destructs. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. That's exactly why we do this, so that actually people go and check your music out now. Until next time.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Graham.